Legal troubles mount for Terraform Labs and for Do Kwon. Welcome to the Daily Forkast, June the 10th, 2022. I'm Forkast's Joel Flynn with the latest on what's happening on the blockchain. And the problems at Terraform Labs continue to make headlines, but those are also raising jurisdictional questions about the reach of US law. So let's get you up to speed on that and everything else from Asia to the world.
Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
All right, let's start with the latest on Terraform Labs' legal battles. This time in the US, the company and its CEO, Do Kwon, have been ordered to comply with subpoenas from the Securities and Exchange Commission over the company's Mirror protocol. They've just lost appeals against the SEC subpoenas. Kwon was first served in September last year in New York as part of an investigation into Terra's decentralized finance service. That offers investors access to cryptocurrencies mirroring the price of US stocks like Amazon. Terraform Labs' appeal claimed that the SEC does not have jurisdiction over the company, which is headquartered in Singapore, nor over Kwon himself, who is a South Korean citizen. They also argued the SEC violated its own rules by serving the motions to Kwon in person. However, the order from an appeals court in New York's Second Circuit said the SEC hadn't done anything wrong. Meanwhile, a South Korean media outlet has claimed the SEC has begun investigating Terra's core developers as well as Kwon over potential money laundering. Do make sure you check out Forkast.News for the latest developments on Terra and Do Kwon. India continues to wrestle with the opportunities and the challenges of crypto. The country's chief economic advisor has added his voice to a chorus warning about the risks emanating from investment in the sector. But that comes as the Reserve Bank of India has been firming up plans to issue a central bank digital currency. Forkast's Monica Ghosh has more from Goa, India.
It might look like paradise, but this is where India's chief economic advisor is worried crypto markets are getting inspiration from. V. Anantha Nageshwaran on Thursday compared cryptocurrencies to the world of Caribbean pirates, and he wasn't talking about the beards. Speaking at an event hosted by the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of India, he warned about the lack of regulation in a sector where, quote, winners take it all. According to local media, he said, quote, I wouldn't be very excited by cryptocurrencies because sometimes we are not fully aware or comprehend the kind of forces we are unleashing ourselves. It echoes warnings from the Reserve Bank of India last month. Those came in the wake of the collapse of Terra's UST and Luna. But it also comes just as the Reserve Bank of India, or RBI, firms up plans for a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. Deputy Governor T. Ravi Shankar said in a press conference on Wednesday, the bank was pressing ahead with the move, first announced in its union budget for this financial year. Shankar confirmed that the RBI plans to introduce the CBDC in stages this fiscal year.
Various technologies will be used. The only thing I would like to emphasize that the process of introduction would be gradual so that there is no disruption in the banking system or the financial system.
The RBI Act of 1934 was amended in this year's finance bill to provide the necessary legal framework for issuing the CBDC. And in its most recent annual report, the RBI said the digital rupee must conform with India's monetary policy and financial stability objectives. It also noted that proofs of concept and pilots would be carried out before the currency's launch. From Goa, India, I'm Forkast's Monica Ghosh.
And finally, the Consensus 2022 Blockchain, Crypto and Metaverse Conference is underway in Austin, Texas. Forkast's editor-in-chief Angie Lau earlier moderated a rather feisty panel there on the digital dollar. She also took a dive into the implications of the recent US digital assets bill with legal expert Lily Tesla. Forkast's Carolyn Wright has more.
During the panel, Dante Disparte, the head of policy for stablecoin issuer Circle, called central bank digital currencies a preposterous idea. He went on to suggest that the Fed issuing its own digital dollar is equivalent to the idea of the United States Federal Aviation Administration building jet engines and flying planes. Disparte claimed that Circle's USDC stablecoin is a real digital solution. However, Rowan Gray, a law professor at Willamette University and ardent crypto critic, argued that as a private company, Circle is shielded from liability and the public would be put at risk if it went under. Gray also exclaimed, "F the Fed," in his opening remarks. Meanwhile, Caitlin Long, founder of crypto bank Custodia, said that despite growth in the DeFi space, there is still no solution for moving funds between it and the traditional financial system. Separate to the panel, our editor-in-chief Angie Lau caught up with Lily Tesler of law firm Sidley Austin, asking what stood out most to her in the recently introduced US digital asset bill.
The one area where I've been focusing a lot of my attention is the application of the securities commodities laws to digital assets and market participants that are regulated by the SEC and CFTC. So for starters, on the securities side, there's still that open question of if something is issued pursuant to an investment contract, an asset, what is the subject of that investment contract? Is that asset security? Is it a commodity? How does that asset trade on the secondary market or even the primary transaction? And it's pretty well settled in some of the case law regarding primary issuance being potentially under investment contract to security, but the subject of that in the bill is referred to as an ancillary asset.
Yeah.
And it proposes a disclosure regime where you would disclose as part of a filing certain key information with respect to ancillary asset for a certain amount of time, and then at some point in time that asset would, during the disclosure time, and then at some point for decentralization in the future, the asset would be treated as a commodity, and then it would fall within the CFTC regulation.
So it's beyond KYC, it's KYS, know your security, because it might be a commodity. Is this what we're talking about?
Yes, I like that KYS characterization because it's important because the U.S. has a securities regime and a commodities regime under two different regulators,
Right.
SEC and CFTC, and right now they're trying to work out the regulators into what jurisdictions the asset fall under, or is it overlapping jurisdiction at some point in time, and certain provisions of this act go to that issue.
So it aims to streamline the thinking, at least on the agency side, but it seems to me it's still very bifurcated. The CFTC have clearer jurisdictional powers and rules and maybe expanded a little bit in this legislation, but the SEC still plays a significant role here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's not that one regulator is stepping away. It's figuring out what portions of the transactions at what stage of the life cycle of the asset is it regulated by each regulator. And not just the asset, it's about the market participants too. The regulations regulate intermediaries. And so intermediaries that transact in certain digital assets know, do they need to be registered with the SEC? Do they need to be registered with the CFTC for purposes of secondary transaction?
You can check out more on the implications of the US Financial Innovation Act from that discussion with Lily Tesler at Forkast.News. For Forkast, I'm Carolyn Wright.
And that's the daily forecast from Asia to the world. There is, of course, much more about the latest on the blockchain at Forkast.News. Do also follow our Twitter as well at Forkast_news. Until next time, I'm Forkast's Joel Flynn. Have a great weekend.